It's all about the Macro Productions.
What does the goddamn line say, Tony?
Please do not use gendered language.
Then what? I'll be arrested, put in airport jail?
Look, you're going completely sideways, man.
It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
How dare you?
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States.
I'm Chris Hansen with Dave on NBC.
Jack Marius Tactheratrix.
Hi, I'm Spartacus.
Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. Steven Seagal.
Sex offender guy.
I'm Keith Morris.
This is Muammar Gaddafi.
I'm Rick James, bitch.
Sorting through the lies.
The hijacker's passport was found blocks from the World Trade Center crash site, if you can believe that.
We cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
And uncovering the centuries-long plan for world domination.
Learning about Cuba, having some food.
Let's talk about Chinese people.
Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Swangles and Fort Lauderdale.
I have sent 6 of my Libyan missiles to blow up the Sears hardware department.
Nothing could be more fun than jumping off a cliff with 2 German bisexuals.
Oh, you English are so superior, aren't you?
Thank you, comrade.
And now, Macroaggressions.
That's what assholes call it.
With your host,
Buddy, I don't know who you are, but you're about to get chlamydia.
Charlie Robinson.
Hey, Whitey, where's your hat?
You want to drop the blame on Charlie and say it's all Charlie's fault.
He was a retard.
I get some goddamn diuretic.
Welcome to Macroaggressions. I'm your host, Charlie Robinson. If you're watching us on Rumble, Band.video, Vigilante TV, now back on YouTube, amazing. Or you're listening wherever podcasts are served, thank you so much. We appreciate your support over the years. If you want to connect with me, macroaggressions.io is the website, the best place to find everything about what we're doing, podcasts, books, Activist Post, all that good stuff. Have you signed up for the Activist Post newsletter? You really should. I'll tell you why. It's fantastic. You get one on Wednesday, Solution Series, and you'll get one on Sunday, Sunday Post, Wrap Up. So if you go to activistpost.com and you're reading an article, down at the bottom, you'll have a option to sign up for the email newsletter. You should do it. It's a good newsletter to get. I promise you. We won't bother you too much with it. We appreciate our sponsors because if we didn't have them, we wouldn't do this show. And Legal Shield has been doing their thing for over half a century in the United States and Canada. They get you an attorney in your area for $1 a day. And it's the best money you'll ever spend. You can knock out all the things that you probably don't have yet. Do you have your last will and testament? You got to have it. Do you have your medical directive, financial power of attorney, all these things you need to have before the accident happens, okay? You don't want to do this when you're in your hospital bed. The good news is you can take care of all of this immediately in the first month as a member. You'll get an app on your phone. You just message them and say, there's a drop-down menu. You tap all the boxes of the documents that you want to create with them, and they'll call you the next day and say, let's set it up. Have you come in, 2 weeks from now and bring out all these documents. We'll knock it all out. You've got to do it. It's the best money you will ever spend. It's the most affordable way to do this. I highly encourage it. But just go to the website and read about it. Don'tGetPushedAround.com is the place to do that. You'll find info for ID Shield, Small Business Plan, the people who carry guns and need documentation for that. There's a lot going on over there. Don'tGetPushedAround.com. Check it out. Also, to the folks over at Chemical Free Body, you guys are making products that actually work. Thank you very much for that. Everyone should be doing it, but apparently they don't care. They don't care about their customers the way Chemical Free Body does. If you want to take supplements, do yourself a favor. Buy them from a company that actually makes supplements that work. Chemical Free Body is fantastic. The Green 85 drink will change your life. I'm telling you right now, if you are sluggish, if you're kind of out of shape, overweight, and you want to do something to radically change your life, do the 90-day detox bundle. It is amazing. As somebody who's done it twice, I can tell you, I didn't have weight to lose and I lost weight, okay? If you think that you have some pounds that you'd like to get rid of, go to chemicalfreebody.com/macro, take a look at the detox bundle, check it out. It works. 100%. I'm telling you right now, it works. The only question is, do you want to do it? Are you ready to do it? Do you need the water the Water Hero system? You should get that. Structured water in the form of a pitcher, like a Brita pitcher. Oh my God. So they're doing it. chemicalfreebody.com/macro. They've got everything you could possibly need to improve your health over there. Really, the only question is, are you ready to do it? I hope you are. Nothing worse than feeling sick, right? You'd give anything to feel healthy. I don't know about you, but I've been kind of paying attention to what's going on out there in the world. And it's part of my job, but also it's a hobby. I like to know what I'm getting into when I walk outside of my front door. I need to know if the apocalypse is upon us. And it's, I'll be honest, it's tough to know what's real and what's not. I mean, even down to like the reactions to society. Is this authentic? Are we really this angry? Are we really this mad? Because I don't really watch the TV a ton anymore. I kind of more so have it on to kind of hear what the narrative is. Boy, there's a lot of fakery happening. I would describe this as living in a post-truth world. You know, it's like, what is the truth? It's like, well, it's subjective. It used to not be. It used to be that 2 + 2 = 4. Now, if you can make a case for it equaling 5, like in Common Core, they'll give you partial credit. So now your delusions are, halfway validated. That's crazy. So it's tough to know what's true these days. How do we know what we know? We were taught it somewhere along the way by people who probably had good intentions, but they were taught what they were taught and they're just passing it down. What if we got bad information? What if this has been like the worst game of telephone ever? What is programming us with these ideas too? Like, who's doing this? What's responsible? I understand the education system's part of it, but there's a media component to it as well. And, what I've noticed in the last few years is that, people would say things like, oh, it's getting crazy out there. And you go, yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy these days, right? Then it was kind of a throwaway line and, maybe just something you said in passing. But it really is getting crazier. And the information is changing, but they don't tell you that it changed. And so when you go to fact check it, like, the fact check is wrong. As an example, if somebody was to tell you what the definition of vaccines were in 2015, and then you remembered it, and then 10 years later, someone says, hey, remember that conversation we had 10 years ago? We were talking about vaccines, and you go and look up the definition of vaccine is this, right? And you go and look it up. The definition has changed. In fact, it's changed twice in 10 years, the definition of vaccination. So even when you think you have a handle on things, like, I know what a vaccination is. I know the definition of it. The definition is this. And then you go look it up and you go, what the fuck? The definition is wrong. They're like, oh, no, do you think the definition's wrong? Maybe you're just wrong. Yeah, sure. Of course. It's possible that I could be wrong. But what if you're not wrong? What if you were correct in your definition of what vaccination was in 2015? Only to be mortified when you open the dictionary today and find that the new version has changed. So how do we know the information is accurate? If it's changing, and then, they didn't issue a correction or anything like that. So I watch the news, not necessarily on TV, but, I consume the news in different forms. And I just, maybe it's because I'm a little bit more in tune to it because of what I'm doing, but I have to ask myself the question pretty often is, am I having my emotions manipulated by this information? And to be fair, it's not necessarily like television news. I get that sometimes. I just don't watch it enough. But it's more like social media clips, posts, videos, things like that, where you see 9 black kids beating up 1 white kid, right? And you go, oh, that's being served to me specifically for a reason. Why? And then you go, this is awful. These guys shouldn't be doing that to that kid, right? And you feel a certain way about it. And you have to go like, wait a second. Like, first of all, if I had somebody sitting next to me, they would be getting served up different ads or different stories or a different reality on social media. So why am I getting what I'm getting? I'm getting it because it's me as a white man, right? So what are they showing me? They're showing me constantly videos of like white people getting beaten up by groups of black people, right? Do they want me to feel a certain way about groups of black people? Yeah, probably. So if you are aware that you're being manipulated, it's harder for them to do it, of course, sort of like the magician. But, am I even asking the right questions? I think I am. Hell, at least I'm asking questions. That's more than what most people are doing out there. So I'm asking questions, but am I asking the right questions? So much of what used to be norms and reality, it has been turned on its head recently. So I kind of feel some days almost like I'm navigating without a compass. Luckily I don't look to the media for morality. So it's not like I have to read the news articles to see how I feel about things. I'll feel how I feel about things depending on how I want to feel, not necessarily because the media is manipulating me. And I'm only able to do that specifically because I am hyper aware that the media is trying to manipulate me. So it really kind of is harder for it to happen to me. But even that being said, I still find myself from time to time having to like walk away from my phone like, holy shit, it's revving me up a little bit. So that leads me to a follow-up question. If I'm feeling this way, who's feeding me this information? Is it the algorithm? Fine, it's a machine feeding me this information. But who's programming the machine? Why are you giving me this information? What are their incentive structures for doing so? I read through the articles now. I read through articles, and it's my job, of course, as the editor of Activist Post. I'm doing nothing but reading articles. Most of the articles I read are from amazing journalists that are telling the truth and, on the right side of history. But every now and then I read these mainstream media articles, and I'll tell you, I'm at the point now where I take a look at it and I look at the name of the author. First of all, I have to ask myself, are there any biases with this author? Do I need to do an early life check on this author to see where their biases are in terms of how they feel about the world? And then I can add that to the article I'm reading and just make a decision whether or not I want to actually finish reading it or not. Like I have to take a look at the author who wrote the article to see if this, if it's somebody writing about America first and his name is Javier Vasquez, I'm not interested in reading it. You know what I mean? So I have to kind of dig. And then my second question is this author a real person? Because the mainstream media is already doing this. They're already trying to pass off AI slop as being authentic reporting. So it used to be, do I agree with this author or not? Now I'm asking, is this author even a person? It's that far, right? It's that far down the technological rabbit hole where you have to ask these questions. Is this person is it AI writing it? Is this a pen name? Is it an amalgamation of a bunch of different people or different thoughts? Is it, like on X, the X accounts that are pro-Israel, like there's many X accounts that are just breathlessly pro-Israel, written by guys who are living in India. And you go, what the fuck is this? This is all dumb. So there's a lot of nonsense in there. And also, we're living at the end of empire. So you're going to see all kinds of crazy stuff. especially with regard to messaging. Trying to convince you that you're not living through the end of empire takes a lot of creativity and work, especially when you have eyeballs and you can just go, well, I've been walking around and I've been living a little bit and the wheels are definitely falling off. And they go, no. Media goes, no, don't believe your lying eyes. You go, well, I just came out of a grocery store that was getting looted. It's bad, right? So, we have to look at this news, and we cannot, under any circumstances, make any assumptions that what they're telling us in the mainstream corporate press is the truth. In fact, quite the opposite. Your assumption should be that the article that you are about to read from the mainstream media is filled with lies. Your job is to figure out where they are. It's not a matter of if they're going to lie to you or not. That's been established. The question is to the matter of degree. Where the lies will be. Will they be overt lies? Will they be lies of omission? How will they do this? All right. But, I mean, I look around and just about everything feels fake to me. Fake news, mainstream media, fake food, GMOs, fake music, AI, fake social media posts, fake social media people, fake social media platforms. I mean, are there people on your platforms? Because I've heard that 70% of internet traffic is bots and dead internet theory, right? So who are we even talking to online? Definitely fake outrage from, well, outrage. Maybe the outrage is real, but it's predicated on a story that's fake, written by a person who's fake about an event that's fake. So maybe the outrage is real, but it's based on something that isn't, right? Fake elections. God damn, do we have fake elections? Fake justice. You've got Ketanji Brown on the Supreme Court pontificating about what is a woman. I mean, an embarrassing turn of events here. Fake citizens, fake money, of course. Fake friends, Israel, greatest ally in the world. You know, when they're not bombing the shit out of us, everything's fake. I don't blame people for throwing their hands up and saying, like, I want to get in my DeLorean and go back to 1985. Things were like normal. I get it. What about at the university level? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I want to talk about the university. I want to talk about history. I want to talk about the science, the fakeness of science that we've been going through. We have to talk about regulatory agencies. They manage this. And I think we'll wrap up. Well, actually, I know we'll wrap up with the fakeness in sports. And this will be a good part because I am, unfortunately, uniquely qualified to speak about sports, given my background. And the talk of sports being rigged has been something I have been hearing for a long, long time. So we'll wrap up with that. But let's talk about the universities, because if you're somebody who, and I'm having to think about this myself in my personal life, it's not a pressing issue, but I have to think about, you know, if my daughter's going to go off to college, and what that looks like. And I jokingly said to her, like, I don't feel the same way about college these days than I did when I was there. I thought it was, I thought you kind of had to do it. It was part of the thing. And I don't feel that way now. And I said, I wouldn't be opposed to you going off if you found like a great college for something specific that you wanted to do, but you would have to promise me you wouldn't be a communist afterwards. And she thought that was funny. I don't think she knows what a communist is, but she'll find out in college. You know why? Because 99% of the voting inside universities and colleges inside America, 99% Democrat voters. That is such a crazy stat that it sounds like it's fake. Because it's hard to get 99% of people to agree on anything. But if you are in academia, you're going to be a Democrat. There's a pretty good chance you're going to be a super Democrat, which is AKA like a leftist. Which means that not only do you vote for the blue team, but you think men can get pregnant and that Men can compete in women's sports because gender's a social construct, and it definitely doesn't matter that bone density and muscle mass and all that's again white supremacy. Bringing that into the equation. So, like, if you are going to the university system, there is a pretty good chance that you are going to come out of it with your head scrambled. You're going to believe unspeakable lies. You're going to be surrounded by overeducated liberal white women who are a danger to society, busybodies with nothing to do, that they think, what this world needs is my input on your problems. No, thank you. You've got DEI and affirmative action, the cornerstone of the university. I mean, affirmative action was there 20 years before DEI was even a thing. And affirmative action was the reason why you'd wind up in college and there'd be some people in your class that you'd go, boy, what are you doing here? You're dumb. You shouldn't be here. You look like you barely graduated from high school. What are you doing in this prestigious university? The answer is affirmative action. The answer is that if only these people all over, different shades, colors, shapes, and sizes, but if only these underprivileged people were given an opportunity, all they need is the opportunity. It has nothing to do with the person itself. It's just that they didn't have the opportunity. And then what do? They take them, pluck them, put them in a place with all the opportunity in the world. And what are the results? A catastrophe. Almost every single time. Because they shouldn't be there. They haven't earned it. The affirmative action is putting people in positions that they shouldn't be in simply because they tick a diversity box, which is crazy. So again, it's almost perfect though, if you think about it. Coming out of the fake university, it does in some ways prepare you for the fake real world. If you're in your safe space in college and then you come out and you have to take a job, even though you're an avowed communist, and you take a job, but then your first week on the job, your boss sends you an email saying, criticizing you, and you quit your job or file a lawsuit or suck your thumb or do whatever you do. I mean, it's the university system, I suppose, is preparing kids for the real world. The problem is the real world, I guess. You can be subjected during your 4 years of university to the likes of anti-white bias, which is a real thing. It's one of the only racism, avenues that's celebrated. You can say whatever you want about my people. There's no line in the sand. You can call for them to be murdered in Times Square, and you won't get kicked off of X, as long as it's white people. Got to get rid of those honkies. There's just too many of them. I agree. There's too many of us. In the depending on where you go in the university system, like if you decide to stay in it, go to graduate school and sort of make your life about academic research and study, then you will find yourself in the world of peer review. And that is hilarious. Frustrating and nonsensical and all that stuff. The only thing James Lindsay has done that I think is worthwhile was the stuff that he was doing, because he's turned into like an unhinged lunatic now. But what he was doing a few years ago when they were writing these peer-reviewed studies about homosexuality at the dog park and stuff like that, and they were saying that like dogs that are raping other dogs at the dog park, and that doing the studies like how when it rains they're more aggressive, and they got a total fake study, like a total nonsensical study, and then sent it in for peer review, and everyone's like, this is brilliant, this is amazing. And it was like him and his buddy that were just like goofing off and writing this bullshit peer review. So like I see that and I go, academia is a total joke. But if that's your goal, to get into college and stay in there, you're going to have to deal with this. You are going to be living in a world of safe spaces, and you're going to check in with the 45 DEI officers per school on average. Did you know that on average in the university system in America, there's 45 DEI officers working there? I would love to know what they do. what do you do? What exactly is it that you do here? This is what university is. If I can be honest, as somebody who went through it, first 2 years didn't really get much. Last 2 years was better. Dug myself a lot of debt, paid it off over the next 10 years or so. It was a lot. I will say it is an incubator for stupid people by people who are too scared to leave and experience the real world. I really do feel that especially in the university system, those who can do, those who can't teach. I've never met with the exception of my finance professor, I never met a professor in my college years that I thought was that I held in high regard. I honestly sort of subconsciously thought they were all a bunch of losers. I really did. I really thought, this is it. This is your life, is teaching me this. You're not even good at this. You can't, like, you've got an English degree, and so you're my English teacher in college. And it's like, what do you, is this it? I wasn't impressed. I'll tell you, the Doug Casey book, the preparation and doing that, the 4 years that Doug and Matt and Maxim Smith spent on those projects and what they were working on, I would take 2 years of that over 6 years at university. Here are some of the majors. I want to, when I say that college is worthless these days and university is worthless, this is part of the reason. Now, I'm not making this up. These are actual majors at real universities. And some of them are going to sound funny, so you're going to think I'm joking, but I'm actually not. And that's kind of the funniest part of this all, because you have to envision some person going to university and signing up and becoming a major in Nordic lesbianism. If you have a master's degree in Nordic lesbianism, I think the only place in the world you are qualified to work is probably Van Nuys, California, where they make porn. I gotta think that's the only place. Nordic lesbianism? That could be hot. I'll be fair. That could be hot. I get the feeling that the people who have Nordic lesbianism graduate degrees probably aren't hot, though. I bet you get a Subaru, though. I bet you get a free Subaru if you have that degree. Other majors include queer studies, diversity and inclusion studies, LGBTQ plus studies. There's a lot of studying going on. There's so much to know. I didn't realize there was so much to know about queerness, diversity, and LGBT. You can spend 4 years apparently studying all this. Post-medieval Russian music. You could take puppetry at the University of Connecticut. Critical race theory. African studies. I swear to God on my life, there is a major called barista theory. Barista theory. Oh, the irony. Oh, the fucking irony. But the sad part of this is that 58% of recent college graduates are unemployed. That's according to Fortune magazine. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk a little bit about history. By the way, if you're at university, don't get a degree in history, because then you're going to have to unlearn everything that you just spent all that money to learn. Okay, American history. In America, in American schools, American history is kind of embarrassing. Like our version of what America is and what it's like. One day, there was the Mayflower. And the Pilgrims came over, and they got here, and there were Indians, and they all had a picnic and a big dinner. The end. That's the American origin story that we get. For those of you in Europe who are like, why are you Americans so dumb? That's why. It's almost not our fault. That's the story we're given early on. They're like, what about the Indians? Like, oh, we all had picnics with them. Like, really? We did? Why aren't they here anymore? Well, we murdered them all, mostly. And then we killed all their buffalo and ran them off a cliff. But, mistakes were made. So if you want to learn history, great. I passed all my history tests all the way through high school and college. only to finally realize that what I learned was complete nonsense and what a waste of time it was. I guess I proved them, I proved to them I could regurgitate the information, which ultimately is the goal. And then I could have spent the rest of my life believing all the lies that I'd been taught. But I take it personally. I mean, some people are like fine with being lied to, or they just go, well, that's just the way it is. I mean, I take offense to it. I feel like you are insulting my intelligence by telling me some of the things that you're telling me. You know, what is our timeline? You know, who built all these amazing old buildings? Because like we can't get, you know, a local grocery store to look anything other than just boxy and shitty and boring. And yet I'm looking at these cathedrals from the 1600s and the 1400s, and I'm looking at the architecture and I'm going, all right, we can't do that today. So who did that back then? And what's going on? And what is our history? And I don't have any sort of emotional anchoring towards it one way or the other. I'm fine with a new version. I'm fine with a new story, provided that it's the truth. I just don't want to hear that, you know, that I don't want to hear it from the Pearson textbooks that Bill Gates owns, you know. I want to know, what year is it? I mean, that sounds like a stupid question, but I need to know. There's long stretches of our history that are completely obliterated. I mean, we don't know if the Dark Ages was an actual period, if it was a period that's been removed from the history books. I mean, there's massive questions about all of it. We're trying to figure out the, you know, molecules and the atomic structure of all these particles. I just want to know what year it is. Did you take 1,000 years out of our history book and dissolve them and hide them away from us? Because if you did, I'd like to know what was going on during that time. I don't pretend to be able to really reasonably find it out. But I just feel like almost everything that we've been told about the place where we live and the way we got here and who we are and where we're going, it's all lies. And I take it personally. I have questions with regard to the history. I think is important for us modern day to understand what happened in World War II. Why can't I get straight answers on World War II? Why do I have to believe a certain version of history of World War II where America, the good guys who came in and won the war, parachuting in the last year, you know, I would like to know what was really going on. Of course, I now have a better understanding of that, but it didn't come from school. Certainly nobody gave it to me. You have to go out there and find it. You have to piece it together yourself. As they say, history is an agreed upon set of lies, right? Narrative, stories, and misdirection that's used to, well, it's used to evade responsibility for atrocities. You know, if in the aftermath of what you did in the lead up to this big war and then the war itself, if in the aftermath of that you get to write the textbooks, are you really going to write about all the horrible shit you did? Absolutely not. So I have questions about our history, and I have questions about the wars that we've been in, why they were started, who was involved, who financed them. Are they all banker wars? The answer is yes. So, but that's not what I'm told. That's not what I'm taught. I'm taught that the Americans had no idea that the Japanese were coming to Pearl Harbor, caught us completely off guard while everybody was snoozing, and, you know, we just were forced into this war against our better judgment, against our will. We had no choice. And that is not true. The entire story is bullshit. It's all fake, possibly gay. I don't know. But usually the reasons for wars are because of bankers. You know, or for their need to cover up crimes, cover up an impending economic collapse, which is a very reasonable thing to happen in the near future. We have a failing economy, not just in the United States, but globally. That's all connected to each other. It has the inability to firewall itself off from other parts of the global economy. If the whole thing goes down, it's going to be bad for everybody. With an economic collapse coming, what do you do to paper over that? You start a war. You start World War III. And you go, well, we would have to have the conditions. The conditions would have to be perfect for that. Well, I don't think the conditions for kicking off World War III can get any better than they are right now, because you could pin it on a variety of bad guys. You've got Israel and Iran and Palestinians. That's going on there. Russia and Ukraine, China, Taiwan, U.S., Venezuela, U.S., everybody. And then you, of course, have the wild card, which is the false flags, which are coming. And I know they're coming because I have to see, for some reason, tweets from Laura Loomer where she's saying Muslim false flag incoming, which of course means that it's going to be a Zionist false flag. So there's a lot of people chirping about how there's going to be a Muslim terror attack. And there's a lot of people in the aftermath of the Mondami win saying, oh, we lost, with 9/11 all over again. We've just invited those same Muslims that did 9/11 to be now the mayor of New York City. Sorry, you're going to have to get clear on your history since we're speaking about that. Muslims didn't do 9/11. The Zionists and our own American government were involved in that. So you're going to have to understand history a little bit better. Let's move on. It's not just the science. It's not just the history that's fake. It's the science as well. And I think, God, if we didn't learn anything over the last 5 years, it's that when you hear a term like trust the science, it's turned into a punching, like a punchline. The irony, right? That Fauci was the only thing he could really go to was trust the science. Now, he couldn't show you the science. He couldn't show you the actual science because there is no actual science connecting this. So he had to say, trust the science. I don't trust any of these people. I don't trust Fauci or Birx or NIH or CDC or the FDA. They're all criminals worthy of multiple life sentences as far as I'm concerned. So when Deborah Birx comes out and says, you got to wear a mask, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, or Fauci says you have to trust the science, or Bill Gates says, the best vaccines are the best investment that we have, and it's the greatest solution for global health. I'm sorry. These people are monsters. They're not accidentally wrong either. They're intentionally misdirecting you. This isn't some misunderstanding. This isn't we got the wrong papers and I read the wrong numbers. This isn't a fat finger on the email where you added an extra zero when there wasn't supposed to be one. It's none of that. This is intentional distraction, disinformation. The COVID operation was depopulation. It's eugenics. It was a military operation. I'm not negotiating with these people. I'm not interested in their explanation, and I'm not willing to listen to mistakes were made. These people should be tried for their crimes and, when convicted, hanged in the town square. All of them. And I put the media in this category as well. If you were a news anchor reading the script, parroting it, you should be tried for your crimes. You should be tried. Because what do we have now? We don't just have COVID was a crazy time. Things were weird. We were in our houses for a couple weeks, a couple months watching Netflix and all that. No. You don't get to paper over that. You introduced mRNA technology into the equation, which is gene therapy, an untested, unproven, rush-to-market gene therapy, which is now kicking off turbo cancers, a now known term. People know the term turbo cancer. Turbo cancer didn't exist before COVID. It is a result of the vaccines. Vaccidents are happening all the time. How many compilations do you need to see of soccer players going down, newscasters collapsing, politicians standing in front of podiums making speeches and tipping over, stand-up comedians falling backwards and hitting their heads? It's the vaccine, dummy. That's what's doing it. Deborah Birx and Fauci are going into a meditative state, trying to pull answers out of a parallel dimension to figure out what's causing this. It's the vaccines. That's what's doing it. Food additives are poisoning people. You can't trust any of the science. Vaccines, scientific fraud, the greatest scientific fraud in the history of modern medicine. Vaccines, all of them. All of them. Murky data collected by Big Pharma, held behind VAERS courts. You can't trust the science. There's no truth. You can't trust your doctor. Your doctor, I'll take my chances with the mother of a vaccine-damaged child knowing more about vaccines than just about any pediatrician out there. They just don't. Except they know that they've got to give them, and they know that they've got to get everybody in their office above 63% vaccinated in order to get their bonuses. They know that. That they're certain of. What the vaccines do, how safe and effective they are, what mRNA technology is, they don't have a fucking clue about any of that. But they know they'll get paid if they get their entire practice vaccinated. That's a fact. Targeted gene weapons are being created now. The science is not to be trusted. Okay? The science is creating gene-specific weapons. If anybody tells you to trust the science, you should be instantly suspicious of that person. I mean, like, when I think of scientific integrity in America, it's not just the pharmaceutical industry, convicted felon, criminal cartel that I'm talking about either. Think about the amount of fraud and fuckery that has come out of NASA over the last 70 years. It is the personification of questionable scientific integrity. I can see the cables on the backpacks of the astronauts, air quotes, on the moon when they're falling down. You guys realize that, right? We have eyeballs and we can see the cables. They're shining off of the secondary light that you guys have there. That's not the moon. I don't want to turn this into a whole moon. It's just that the research is low grade these days. The studies and findings that are coming out in the scientific world are not repeatable. It's garbage. It's a frustrating time to be paying attention. I mentioned that I would talk about regulatory agencies. They're not the most fun to talk about, but when you're talking about living in a post-truth world, you have to understand that when they put regulators in positions to make sure that there's, to make sure that everything is sort of on the up and up. The first thing that happens in situations like this is that the regulators get bribed and get bought off because companies, banks, hedge funds, they make a calculation here. They're not stupid. This is at its core, it's just math. If I am running Pfizer as an example, and I've got my new mRNA technology vaccine, right? And I come out and I say it's the greatest thing ever. It's going to cure cancer and it's going to do all that stuff. And I make $100 billion in profits from my definitely going to cure cancer Pfizer vaccine. And then the results come out and guess what? People are dying left, right, and center. And I get sued. And it's a big one, right? It's not just the old Pfizer vaccine lawsuit or the Pfizer lawsuit that was $2.3 billion. This one's $5 billion. I really get hammered. $5 billion. They sue me. I get fined. I have to pay this out. If I am making $100 billion and I have to pay $5 billion, that is like tipping out the bar back. You know what I mean? This is the cost of doing business. This is just what you do. I would make that count if I was a soulless psychopath who didn't mind murdering people. You'd make that deal all day long, right? I'm going to make 100 and I only have to pay 5 as my punishment. Okay, please don't punish me. In fact, I would beg people to punish me. I'd beg people to punish everybody in my industry, especially my competitors who can't afford to pay the fine, but I could. So it's tough. It's tough to trust the regulatory agencies, the ones that are set up there. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, otherwise known as the Fraud and Death Administration. What about the CDC? Do you trust the CDC? Do you trust them? Interesting. Because, you see, the CDC sets the vaccine schedule. You know that schedule, it's 78 shots over, all the years. The CDC is in charge of creating that schedule. The CDC also owns the patents on a bunch of vaccines and makes money every time those vaccines are sold. In fact, the CDC makes so much money, they make about $5 billion a year on the patents that they own on the vaccines. The thing is, the regulatory agency that is in charge of making sure that the vaccines are safe and effective has a financial stake in the very vaccines that they are supposed to be regulating. So when they mandate 78 vaccines and they own the patents on like half of them, that would be like if I mandated that everybody buys 78 copies of my book. Where is my incentive to write good books if I can just mandate that you buy them? This is the pharmaceutical industry, and this is the relationship that they have with a regulatory agency that's supposed to be there to regulate them. Not only that, there's a full-blown revolving door at the heads of the CDC and the heads of maybe not the heads, but the high-ranking positions inside the pharmaceutical industry. When Scott Gottlieb leaves the FDA and goes to work for Monsanto or for Pfizer, that's why. All these people are rotating in. They come in, work in a government regulatory agency, make sure that things don't get through or approve certain things that are questionable. I approve you. It doesn't have to be a written sort of deal. It could just be a wink, wink, nudge, nudge sort of thing. Hey, I approved your really questionable vaccine when I was the head of the FDA. I'm thinking of leaving the FDA. You guys looking for someone? Oh yeah, we're looking for someone. How'd you like to make $500,000 a year playing golf with clients? Sounds great. I'd love to do that. See how it works? So this is the problem with regulatory agencies. The first thing that gets regulated are the regulators. They get bought. LIBOR, London Interbanking Interbanking Operational Rate. The rate that banks lend money to each other. LIBOR. They rigged the LIBOR rate. Forex, the foreign metals market, or COMEX and Forex, both the foreign exchange and the COMEX. They rigged these marketplaces. And not my opinion that they rigged the marketplaces. They went to trial. They were found guilty. They paid penalties. They rigged it. They were busted rigging gold and silver markets. They've been doing this for literally decades. TSA. How many terrorists has TSA caught? Take a wild guess. I'll give you a hint. It starts with the letter Z. Okay. What about Child Protective Services? Do you know what Child Protective Services does? They run kids. They are involved in child trafficking. Everything is inverted. The regulatory agencies that are there is supposed to protect you from the pharmaceutical companies work for the pharmaceutical companies. The regulatory agencies that are there to make sure that your gold and silver markets are totally on the up and up are rigging the gold and silver markets. They're all involved in it. It's just all crime at all times. They approved aspartame, not because it was safe, but because Rumsfeld became the head of the company, G.D. Searle, and then it was magically approved. DDT was approved. Smoking was recommended by 4 out of 5 doctors. I'm sorry. If you take your morality from the state, if you view the world through the lens of what would the regulatory agencies do, that's how I'll measure my morality. You'll be a psychopath. This is not how you want to model your behavior, is after how the regulatory agencies make sure that the crimes aren't being committed. No, they make sure that the crimes are being committed that benefit them. And they cover up dangerous data that pokes holes in their official narrative. Speaking of official narratives, let's talk about the media collapse. The only group with a bigger credibility problem than the mainstream media is probably Israel at this point. The ratings of leftist shitbag cable news is down 50%. Not surprising. I can't even tell you what the ratings are for things like reading the New York Times or reading the Wall Street Journal. Most of the people who would be interested in that stuff probably can't read. 21% of Americans can't read to begin with. The leftists that are interested in that are, too busy with anxiety disorders or sucking their thumb in a safe space. I mean, they're not going to sit down and watch the news, especially now that the lead up to Trump's election was getting them interested in the news because they had this fantasy that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris was going to come out of the ashes and she was going to rise up and be this social justice leader that was going to take them to the promised land or Starbucks or wherever. And then they got Trump. And now they've turned off their TV. MSNBC's down 57%, their ratings. Yikes. That's hard to do. CNN was already down 50% back when they tried to do CNN Plus. But I have, remember that when they burned $250 million in 3 weeks when they tried to launch CNN Plus? I have a surprise for you. Don't say I don't get you anything. My surprise for you is that it's coming back. Oh, you think I'm kidding? I'm not. CNN Plus is coming back. It's not called CNN Plus because, that's kind of a tough one to live down. But it's a paid CNN premium site to go along with the free site that nobody's watching. So again, there's a free site for CNN. Nobody's watching it. So what did they think the smart thing to do is? Let's take our audience that doesn't exist and then let's charge them money for the content that they're currently not watching. Let's give them additional content that they also won't watch. I honestly feel like there has to be some sort of money laundering explanation for this, or something that like maybe an executive would pull me aside and say, listen, man, this is what we're doing. It's a tax write-off scheme. We're going to turn this, we're going to run this thing into the ground. We're going to claim a higher rate. We're going to write off all this money. It's a tax write-off scheme. Shut the fuck up. That's what we're doing. If someone did that to me, I would say, okay, all right, well, I get it now. Now I understand what you're doing. Absent that, again, let me reiterate, CNN is going to start a paid version of CNN after CNN Plus. After they're down 50%. Now's the time to do it. I hope they do. I can't wait, to be honest with you. We've got, in conjunction with this media collapse, I would say, let's put social media in there too. It's not necessarily a collapse, not in terms of numbers, but a collapse in maybe how we view social media. TikTok was bought by Larry Ellison, you might have heard. Larry Ellison works for the CIA and is a hardcore Zionist who thinks that really he's Israel first and America, I don't know, somewhere on the list, but he's a very dangerous guy, and he bought TikTok. And the reason why he bought TikTok was to shut down the criticism of Israel. He didn't buy TikTok to make more money. He's got $400 billion. He doesn't need more money. If he wanted to make more money, he'd literally do nothing and sit on his Oracle stock, which is going to the moon in the last 2 years, okay? You don't sell Oracle stock to buy TikTok because you think you're going to make money on it. You buy it because there's a much different reason for it. There's an agenda, and the agenda is to quiet down that narrative, control the media. His daughter, Megan Ellison, would know a thing or two about that. She's been in Hollywood for the last 20 years as a movie producer, controlling the narrative there as well through movies such as Zero Dark 30. What about David Ellison? Her brother, Larry's son. He's now the chairman and CEO of Paramount Skydance. And possibly, because they're in negotiations to do this, though others are as well, but possibly the owner of Warner Brothers Discovery as well. So this is the way I take, here's my take on it. There's always companies being bought and sold. There's always consolidations. There's mergers. It's tough to make money in media. And there's you can find yourself in ways where you lose a shitload of money in media, right? So there's consolidation, and that's always going on. Especially since in the aftermath of the deregulation in the late 90s by Clinton. But I would suggest that what is happening right now is a little different. It feels like the purchase of TikTok, the possible purchase of Warner Brothers Discovery is more, if I had to put my tinfoil hat on, and I've got it, I would say, what if the narrative management complex was stepping in to get all this media under control in advance of something? My question would be, what would it be in advance of that would warrant such a disproportionate response, like buying TikTok and buying all these outlets? And if I had to guess, I would say World War III. If you want to make sure that you have the general public of America supporting a third war, and they'll do it whether they have support or not, to be fair, but it's way easier if they've got the support of the people, because then things can happen. If you know that World War III is coming, and they're always scheduled, despite how people in the history books would like to lead you to believe, they're always on the calendar. You would want to have the narrative buttoned up. You'd want to have control of that to the extent that you could. You'd want to have people in positions to make sure that you couldn't talk about some things, and that other aspects were artificially elevated and promoted. So I wonder if this consolidation in the media is in the run-up to a bigger issue. Listen, let's just say that if you acknowledge that you are living in a post-truth world, that the things that you were taught when you were a kid, if you get lost, if you wind up in a bad spot, find a policeman and tell that policeman, pull him and say, I'm lost, all the things that you told. Living in a post-truth world means that you need to understand that the police chief is a Satanist at a meeting with a bunch of other people who are doctors and lawyers and judges, and they're all in that network. And that the world that is presented to you, that you think you see, is a massive illusion. And that some of the people in positions of high power and respect and authority in your world are some of the most dangerous people out there. Did you ever wonder why they went after Alex Jones as hard as they did for Sandy Hook? Did you ever stop to ask, why that? Alex has been talking for years. He's been saying crazy shit for decades. If you watch OBDM, or you listen to OBDM, Our Big Dumb Mouth, the funniest podcast in the world, they have the greatest compilation of Alex Jones clips. You can listen to all the crazy stuff he said. Turn it on Wednesdays. Alex Jones clips of the week. They'll play some for you. They're hysterical, right? He said crazy shit. And I say that because if I were to rank the crazy things he said, Sandy Hook would not be at the top of the list, okay? But why do you think they went after him for that? Because he insulted some parents? He made some parents feel all icky inside? Was mean to them about their dead kids or whatever? So you go after $1.5 billion? Doesn't that make you ask questions like, that seems like a disproportionate response to something like that? It was. And the reason why it was because, and I've done episodes on this and I've written it in my Octopus book. The reason was that Alex was right about Sandy Hook. And they went after him because he tapped into one of these post-truth realities. And that is, there are some cities that are best described as Spookville, where it's just filled with intelligence assets. It's just people. It's a city. It's almost like a Potemkin village, like a fake city. And Sandy Hook is one of those places. And I don't want to get into the details of it because you can go watch or listen to my episode, Everyone Must Check In, where I went through and detailed it. You buy the Octopus book. It's like page after page after page of bullet points of all of the components of Sandy Hook that nobody's talking about, the media didn't talk about. Whole thing was fake. Why did they go after him? Because he was pulling on a thread that was going to expose exactly just how unreal everything is. Let's wrap up with sports. I told you I would get into this. This is my wheelhouse. I come out of the sports world. I think it's worth reminding people that these leagues are registered as entertainment assets. You know, they're not sports. The rules for sports league ownership are very weird. It is an unusual, you know, we claim to be in a democracy and there's all these laws against collusion but then all that gets thrown out the window when it comes to leagues, because there is collusion. It is a collusion by decree. They are all the owners work together with the commissioner. They hire the commissioner works for the owners, and then they create the league and they set the schedule and hire the players and do all that stuff, right? And I came out of this in the sports media world. So, it's listed as entertainment for a couple reasons. I think one is tax purposes, but also because it covers them. You know, if anything ever comes out, if anything ever gets exposed, if there's ever any cheating, the one thing that will destroy professional sports is if, you know, you can be Ray Rice and knock your girlfriend out in an elevator on camera and get kicked out of the league, and you can be a pariah for that, and people will say you're a horrible guy and you shouldn't be a part of the league, and you can do all kinds of bad things, you know, personal conduct wise, that would get you a bad reputation. But cheating is the one component of professional sports that really goes to the heart of it all. Because if you don't believe that the games are on the up and up, then it's over. If you are of the belief that the games are rigged, then you won't watch them. So they have to keep this. They have to protect this. Now, we just had a massive basketball betting ring get busted. Was an NBA cheating scandal. It was point shaving, over-unders, game totals, things like that. If you're not a sports fan, you probably don't care too much about this. But these days, it used to be that you would go to Las Vegas to bet on sports. You could go to the sports book there, and you could put $100 on the Patriots on Sunday. You know, but now and then, in Vegas, though they had these massive sports books that are great, people are lined up to gamble. Vegas sportsbook legalized sports betting was only about 1% of actual sports betting. Illegal sports betting was the other 99%. So it's been going on forever. You know, you got a bookie in your area. Hey man, you want to put some money on the game? Now it's all gone digital. Now it's all DraftKings and various sports betting apps that you can have on your phone. And in doing so, the options have expanded, right? So it used to be that you would bet on a basketball game, you got an over-under total, right? So you could bet on the game. Now you can get specific and bet on the players. I bet Terry Rozier is going to have less than 6 rebounds and less than 8 points in this game, right? And I can bet that. They'll tell me what the line is. 8 rebounds, 6 points, or 8.6 rebounds. And then I say over or under, right? I bet over or under. Now, if I'm a gambler and I have access to Terry Rozier, the guy I'm betting on, and Terry says to me, yo, man, I feel like I'm probably going to pull my hamstring in the first quarter, if you know what I mean, wink, wink. Then I'll bet the under. And of course I'll win because he's going to be out there playing, and about 8 minutes in, he's going to grab the back of his leg and go down. Like, oh shit, looks like Terry Rozier went down with a hamstring injury. What a coincidence. That's how you cheat. right? So that's what happened, is that they started pulling in a couple of players, right? First, they grabbed Gilbert Arenas. I don't know if you know about Gilbert Arenas. He's been in the middle of some things for a while. He had a first time this really got on my radar. Of course, I know who Gilbert Arenas is, but had an incident in the Washington Wizards clubhouse where he was playing cards against Javaris Crittenton, and Javaris pulled a gun on him in the clubhouse. Javaris was kicked off the team. He was kicked out of the league. He later murdered a guy and is in prison for the rest of his life. A real dangerous dude. But that happened about 15 years ago. Maybe 10 years ago. I remember hearing that. And I was like, God damn. Like, I know the guys all play cards on the bus or in the plane. That's been going on for decades. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you get mixed up with people who are like mafia sports bettors, right? And that's what they said in this case, was that they got mixed up with the Italian mob. So Chauncey Billups, he's a former, he was a CU buff. He was an NBA star of the Detroit Pistons for a while. He played for a lot of teams. He was the head coach. He was the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers. After game one, they then arrested him, took him into custody. They arrested Damon Jones, Terry Rozier, Gilbert Arenas. Jonte Porter had been arrested earlier. So what's going on is that they're looking for unusual betting activity. They're looking to see, like, all of a sudden, everybody's betting the under on Terry Rozier's rebounds and points. It's like, well, someone must know. So it used to be that you'd have to kind of manually look at this. Now it just flags it automatically in the computer, and they say unusual betting activity on this guy. So they start watching you. And then they look at that game, and they look at how you played, and they look at you taking shots. They look at you, these behind the back passes at turnovers, they're like to nobody. And you go, what's happening? So it spreads. And that's what's going on right now. We've got Damon Jones, one of the players, giving injury report information to gamblers about other people he's playing with. Now, Damon Jones is like a nobody player. The problem is he played on like 10 different teams during his league. So he literally knows everybody in the league and had played with them. So if he's the guy who's giving injury information, he's been giving it on LeBron and a bunch of guys. So is LeBron part of it? In the sense that, and maybe things will come out later. We'll see. Not necessarily, but it could be like LeBron has a strained calf, and Damon Jones knows it. He knows it today, and he knows that there's a game tonight, and he knows LeBron's going to be dealing with this strained calf, but nobody knows it because they haven't announced it on the injury reports. So he tells some gamblers, and they bet the under on the Lakers, and they bet the under on LeBron personally. And LeBron goes out there and has a game that's average or below average because he's dealing with a calf thing. He doesn't want to tell anyone about it. They have information that nobody else knows. So this has been going on for a while. Now, the trigger. So you can do this if you do it in small increments, right? But that's not how it works. Everyone always gets a little bit greedy and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Next thing you know, $200,000 in prop bets are coming in on Terry Rozier on the under on March 23rd, 2023, when he was playing for the Charlotte Hornets. $200,000 from people all around the world magically all decided to bet on this one player who's he's not a star. Terry Rozier, he's like a starter, but he's not a star. And by the way, who's making like $20 million a year. So you'd immediately go like, there's no way he could be in on it. He doesn't need the money. Oh, you'd be wrong. And sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes they just get caught up. Sometimes they get caught in blackmail situations where they were doing some bad shit that someone's got on camera, and now they have to do this, right? So they don't need the money. And you make the assumption, well, they wouldn't be doing it because they don't need the money. Incorrect. They may be doing it for other reasons. So 200,000 in bets come in. It triggers the system for unusual betting, obviously. And Rozier leaves the game after 9 minutes with a fake leg injury. The feds get involved, and 30 people get arrested and hauled in with mafia involvement. So the question is, how serious is this? Is this one of these things where you just go, it's a slap on the wrist? Well, first of all, I don't know if you could ever measure how serious it is for the league, because just the idea that people are doing. By the way, Chauncey Billups, head coach, was making decisions in games last year where they were up. I don't know the exact scenarios, but it was a scenario in which you wouldn't make the substitution that he made when he made it, and yet he made it. And they lost the game. And they lost the game by 5 points when they needed to lose the game by at least 4.5. The only way to do that is to lose by 5. At least 5. So came in right at where he needed to, and everyone's getting suspicious. So again, is this a big deal? Yes. Jontay Porter, a player with the Houston Rockets who was arrested last year for this same thing, he pled guilty and is looking at 20 years for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and another 20 years for conspiracy to commit money laundering, which in my opinion is not an actual crime. But anyway, doesn't matter what my opinion is when you're looking at 20 years in federal prison. So this is a big deal, right? His partner, Long Phi Pham, pled guilty as well. So these guys are going to prison. Jontay Porter was set to make, I don't know, multiple $1 million every year for the next at least 10 years playing basketball. All he had to do. He's going to go to prison for decades for this. So, look, the economy is a lie. That's for sure. We got 42 million people on food stamps. That's 1 in 8. I mean, it's bad enough that history is filled with lies. Let's make sure that the future isn't as well. Let's ditch the propaganda to the extent that we can. Get your news from Activist Post, why don't you? It's not fake news, despite the 2016 witch hunt. You know, they like to blame Activist Post and put it in the same category as Zero Hedge and WikiLeaks. Please do. I would love it if you'd continue to put Activist Post in those categories. I hope you're getting your news over there on your laptop or mobile. It works great. So, look, all I say is that, as Ryan Christian says, question everything. You can't go wrong with that. Hey, everybody, if you like this episode, you can take the additional step right now of sharing it with your friends and family. Rate the show if you haven't done so already. Macroaggressions.io is the place to find me. Talk to you soon. Take care.